I think everybody goes to that phase in their life where they don't know what to do. They don't feel like they've achieved what they wanted. They might not be seeing the money that they want. They might not feel happy. And some people can go from that stage to then achieving a lot of wealth. Some people kind of stay average. Some people go nowhere. And you were able to go from a place like that where you were broke, you felt hopeless, you didn't know what you were going to do in life. So you were on your sister's sofa, to then building massive empire, making millions of dollars, not of net worth, but a year from your businesses. What habits and what did you do, not just mindset, but also financially, to go from that to the new Lewis House?
I mean, well, I think the first thing was getting clear that I didn't want to be in that situation anymore, and getting a clear mission of what I wanted to be guided towards. And originally I was driven to be successful, and I achieved success. I achieved it in sports, then I achieved it in business by focusing on success, by focusing on specific goals that would get me specific results, external results. A number in sales, results for a book launch, podcast growth, accolades, all these things that are tied to success.
Yeah.
But what I realized was success was not enough. It wasn't enough to make me actually feel fulfilled, feel peaceful, feel harmonious inside of myself. So the more I actually accomplished, the angrier and scared I got.
Is this before you were broke?
This was when I was broke.
Okay.
This was when I was broke. I started to get into the business world and accomplish success, but it wasn't giving me everything I wanted.
Okay.
So what I've learned is there's a difference between success and greatness. In success, you can make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Success, you can build a massive business. You can have a huge real estate portfolio. You can do all these things. And that's awesome. But you still got to figure out what greatness looks like for you. And greatness is about having that peace and harmony in the pursuit of your dreams and goals.
Yeah.
And feeling enough, even though you want to strive for more.
I see.
And so I was accomplishing success and not feeling fulfillment. I was making money because I was clear on goals, but it was to fill a hole, not because I was feeling good about myself, because I wasn't feeling good about myself. And that drive got me financial success and results, but it still didn't fix the problem inside of me. So I had to switch from success mindset to greatness mindset so that I could accomplish all the things I wanted in business and things like that and still feel good about myself. I think the people that I respected the most early on, I really looked up to the men who had a good model of life. So I had a few key male model figures that were probably 15, 20 years, wiser than me, who had healthy marriages, who had healthy businesses. None of them were massive, like billionaires, but they were doing pretty good. And they had mastered fulfillment in the art of making money as well. And I wanted the results, but in the beginning, I was kind of driven to do it because I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel good enough. And I was trying to fit in and belong in society based on getting certain results financially. And it wasn't until I made a lot of money and I realized, why do I still not feel good?
Yeah.
I've got the money now. I've got opportunities to buy things, but why don't I still feel good about myself? It wasn't until I switched it from a selfish success mindset into greatness fulfillment mindset. That's when everything started to shift about 10 years ago, where I started to build my business in a different way that was in service to others as well as supporting my goals and my dreams. That's when the money started to feel differently. That's when I had a different emotional connection to money, a different relationship with money. It became more abundant for me as opposed to scarce. I became less triggered around money when I started to learn some of these lessons and implement them through years of mistakes.
And I know you talk about this in your new book, The Greatest Mindset, which I read on the way here. I recommend, if you haven't gotten this book yet, get yourself a copy. It talks about your story, how you went from broke then to building the success financially, but also the mental habits. So if you haven't gotten a copy of this book, make sure you get yourself a copy, Amazon, wherever you want to see. I'll also link it down in the description. But I think what was interesting there is, I want to back up a little bit for somebody who might not know, because you wanted to go to the NFL. You were trying to be a pro athlete, and then you had an injury, which broke all those careers.
Yes.
So I guess in that state now, you have this dream you've been working towards your whole life, and now it's shattered. You broke your wrist, right? And now you have
I had a surgery and I had a cast on for 6 months, a full arm cast.
So now you go through this like traumatic experience, painful physically, painful mentally. Now your dreams are shattered.
I'm on my sister's couch, got no money.
Now you have no money.
This is 2008. I don't know if you bought your first house then, but this is when, this is when the economy was crashing, and they weren't hiring, arena football players into the career workforce who didn't have college degrees, which was me.
So you had no college degree then?
I had no college degree yet. I went back and finished in the next year. I had about 5 credits shy when I went to go, pursue the professional football dream. So I didn't have that in 2008.
And you had how much debt around that time?
I probably had like $23,000 in student loans. And then probably, I don't know, at the time, $65,000 or $7,000 in credit cards off 3 credit cards that was just kind of...
$65,000 or $6,500? $6,500, okay.
So it wasn't more than $30,000, $35,000 total in debt. But it felt like millions because I had no money. I didn't know how to make money. That was the challenge.
And that credit card debt is expensive. You got the bills due every month.
Yeah.
And now you're on your sister's sofa. So I mean, I'm just trying to envision that that position, because now you're in a down economy, one of the worst recessions since the Great Depression. No one is hiring. You have no money coming in. Your sister's probably like, what is my brother doing? Right? Asking you, and that's gonna mentally drain you. What was like that clicking point where you're like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like what was that triggering point?
My sister told me after a year and a half, well, I never wanted to do it, but I didn't have the courage on how to get out of it. So I was finding mentors, I was researching, I was learning things during this time on my sister's couch. I was like consuming content on the internet, and I was looking for people to connect with and learn from. So it wasn't like I was doing nothing, but I wasn't taking enough action to generate revenue yet. I was in learning mode. I was in overcoming fear mode. I was trying to develop new skills, but I didn't know how to ask for $1. I didn't have the courage and say, I can do this for you, will you pay me? I didn't think anyone would pay me anything. And after about maybe a little over a year, my sister said she gave me an incredible gift. It was more valuable than any amount of money. She said, Louis, you gotta leave. You gotta get out of the house, or you gotta start paying rent.
Oh yeah.
So I'd been there for over a year now, rent-free. And I'd been there over a year, eating her food for free. Kind of living in this state of, now 6 months I was in a full arm cast, so I wasn't really able to do much physically, so I had to recover. Then it was another year of kind of like learning how to use my wrist again, because I lost a lot of mobility. They took a bone out of my hip, put it into my wrist because I shattered the wrist bone. So once it came out of the cast, 6 months in this position. So you would think that you'd be fine after you get out of a cast. I couldn't straighten my elbow because I was in this position for 6 months in a 90-degree position. So it just was, my elbow was actually just as much pain as my wrist because of this lack of mobility, because it was in a 90-degree, because they didn't want me to turn my wrist like this. So I had it stuck in this position. And so I had to learn how to rehab all the tendons and the joints, and it was just like stiff, and I couldn't bend or flex my wrist for a long time. And any pressure was really painful. So I had to just kind of learn how to use my body effectively. It's still weaker today on my right side than my left side.
Really?
Even though I'm right-handed, I still have weakness there because of that immobility. But she told me, you gotta either pay rent or you gotta leave. And it was an incredible gift because I had essentially mooched off of her for over a year at this point, and welcomed my stay. It was supposed to be like a couple months max, which turned into a year. And she, was a great older sister, supported me, helped me, but I feel like she paid her, she did her part, and she gave me a gift by essentially saying, either pay and contribute now, or you gotta move on. And that was a huge gift because it forced me to take action. Before then, I was learning and developing, but I wasn't acting courageously. I'm like, okay, how do I make money? And so what does any smart younger brother do when he gets kicked out of one house from one sibling? I call my brother and say, can I stay here for free? And he says, you can stay, but my wife wants you to contribute. So you got to pay $250 a month in rent. And I remember thinking $250 felt like thousands.
And how old were you then?
24 maybe. And so I'm a grown man, but still acting like a child because I can't pay for myself. So I don't feel good. It's not like I'm in a good situation. I felt like my identity was gone, my talents and my gifts I could no longer use to get validation, which was being an athlete, being the man on the football field, playing in front of 20,000 people, getting paid. Even though I was only getting paid $250 a week, it felt like incredible to be able to make money doing something I was good at. So I couldn't save money from arena football. And so he said, you got to pay $250 a month. And it was a stretch because I didn't have that. But it forced me to start getting creative and start asking for money. And I remember my sister, she said, I need you to go get a job so you can contribute. And I remember looking on Craigslist at the time for sports marketing jobs because I was in sports. I did sports marketing in school, and I was like, maybe I can get a job here. And I applied for a few, and I got an interview for one of these sports marketing companies in Columbus, Ohio. And I remember thinking, this is actually right up my alley. I think I could be really good at this. The company looks cool. It's up and coming, like startup sports marketing brand. I go, and I think it paid, I don't know, 30 grand a year or something like that. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was a lot for me. I was like, oh, I can pay some money here and contribute and make some cash. And I remember having like one sport blazer from like college still, from like senior day or something, right? Or whatever it had. And I was getting dressed to go out for this interview. And I remember opening the front door of my sister's house and looking at the car on the street that I was going to get into to go. And I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't take a step out the door. I like stood there at the door and I was like, okay. I kind of saw like a flash over the next few years. I was like, I believe I'm going to get this job. Maybe my ego was too big then, but I just had this confidence, I'm going to land this job. I'm going to get it. And then I'm going to work really hard because I want to work hard. I want to do well. And then I'm going to be here for a few years and work up in this company and do the best I can. But I don't think it's what I'm supposed to do right now. And so I didn't take the step out of the house. And I said, okay, I shut the door. I didn't even reply and say I'm not showing up. I just didn't go.
Wow.
So I never went to a job interview. And I just said, now I've got to figure this out. And I remember being like, all right, what can I do to start making money? Early on, I did something similar to you. I was an event planner. Not by design.
Really?
Not by design, kind of by necessity. So at the time, I was using LinkedIn to network with people locally in Columbus, Ohio. Midwest life, baby, You're from the state up north, and I'm from your neighbor in the south.
The little brother.
Yeah. And so I had one mentor said, why don't you check out LinkedIn? Maybe you can find some job opportunities. And that's where I was meeting these other influencers, CEOs, executives in Columbus who were working or owning companies. I was building relationships on LinkedIn in 2008 and 2009, early days. And I was building a lot of relationships. And I would just ask people questions when I connect with them and say, hey, what's the biggest challenge you're struggling with right now in your business? And they would tell me. And then I would try to connect them with other people on LinkedIn. So I was essentially like a business matchmaker, but I was just doing it to help people.
You weren't getting paid?
Not getting paid. I was just kind of like, okay, cool. I know this person in Columbus as well that I connect with on LinkedIn. Let me connect you guys.
But what made you want to do that?
I didn't have any other skills or any other way to add value, but I was gaining wisdom from these people I was connecting with. Some of them would jump on a call with me and they would give me some advice. Some of them would tell me how they overcame some challenge in their business. I would meet with some of them locally. And I would just always ask them questions and ask them like, hey, what's your big struggle in your business right now? And they say, oh, I really need a designer. Or I'm really looking for a social media person because social media is coming up. I'm really looking for an IT guy. And I would just try to find the solution for them. I would try to find the person in the local market who could potentially be their solution to their problem.
So you did it to learn, not to earn.
That was it, man. I just wanted to learn from people. And then I was just like, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything for them. I don't have a skill. I couldn't work for them. So I was like, well, let me help them solve a problem. And I was really good at building relationships at that time, so that became a skill and an asset. So I was building this local community, and I remember I started to go to these meetups. In 2008, there was this thing called tweet-ups. There was a Twitter meetup. I don't know
Really?
I don't even know. You were like, how old then?
18. I was in high school, so no, I was 16-ish.
So I'm like 24 or something, right? 23, 24. And Twitter was becoming a thing in 2008, 2009. And so they started like, some celebrity said, I'm doing a tweet up in some city somewhere, and then everywhere else around the country, people were like, all right, let's do a tweet up, which was a Twitter meetup. And one of the influencers would message out, okay, we're gonna meet at this restaurant or this, lounge or whatever at this place and this time, and then like everyone would go in the local community. And I went to one of these and there was hundreds of people there. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is really powerful because I'm meeting all these people, interesting people in the city who are doing different things. And as I was using LinkedIn almost daily to connect with people and to meet people and try to find opportunities, I said, maybe I can do a LinkedIn meetup. And so I remember I did a LinkedIn meetup, my first meetup. I'd never done an event before. I had no clue what I was doing. I was 23, 24. I had no job. I had no money. I had no business doing this. I was not an event planner. But I saw this tweet up thing and I go, maybe I can make some money here. Because a lot of people were finding value of connecting in person. So I said, instead of connecting on LinkedIn people, why don't I meet everyone in person, do a free LinkedIn meetup, and see if I can sell like a couple sponsorship tables. So I sold 4 sponsorship tables for $250 each, where I just had a table out where they could put out their promotional materials. And I had a free event. And my first event was in St. Louis, Missouri, because I lived there in high school and I had a good connection there too. So I started building these LinkedIn groups in different cities: Columbus, Cleveland, St. Louis, LA, New York. It's kind of LinkedIn New York, LinkedIn LA groups, business professionals. I still have these groups today. They have hundreds of thousands of members.
Wow.
And I started cultivating people in these groups, adding them one by one, reaching out to people in the cities and saying, hey, join this group, here's a link. People would join, they'd share. It's about little communities. I did my first event in St. Louis. 350 people showed up.
Wow.
350 people.
That's a lot of people.
Now it's free. It was like a 3-hour networking mixer, right? So I called a venue that I knew in St. Louis and I said, what's the slowest night of the week? They were like Wednesday. And I go, okay, can I use the venue for free if I bring people that night and if I help you sell like drinks and appetizers? And they said yes, so I didn't have to pay for the venue because I got the slowest night of the week. And then when I got there and all these people came, it became the busiest night of the week for them. They made more money that night from selling like alcohol and drinks and food. They were like, this is incredible. So I made $1,000 from these, sponsors. I made the restaurant and bar a ton of money that they were really happy with me. They're giving me free food. They're like, oh, anytime you want to do this, come. And I started to think, oh, maybe there's something here. I made my first $1,000 doing a networking event. And I said, I wonder if I could charge $5 at the door and if people would still come. So let me charge $5. So now the next event I do, I charge $5. Again, 300 something people show up. Like, okay.
Did you have the sponsorship booth as well?
And I had the sponsorship booth.
There we
so
go.
I'm making cash and then cash, right? Then I go, why don't I try this? What if I tried $10? And now I'm doing another event in Columbus, Ohio. I'm trying it in Cleveland. I'm going to LA. I'm doing it in New York. I'm going around the country and starting to do these events. I'm capturing content, showing like, look how many people are showing up at these events. You guys got to come too. And then I start building relationships with these restaurants and bars. And I say, hey, can you give me 10% commission on all food and bar sales of this night? It's going to be the worst night of the week for you. Yeah. And I'm going to come and bring it to you and not to your competitor next door. And they're like, absolutely. So they started paying me 10% of commission of food and bar sales.
Wow.
Then this just kept happening over a year. I did 20 events in 1 year. LinkedIn networking events all around the country.
Wow, that's quite a bit, man.
And I just started hustling. Every month I was doing events, 1 to 2 events for a year. And I realized, okay, if I can make $1,000, how do I make $2,000? How do I make $3,000, $5,000? Then everyone started coming to me and saying, how are you getting this many people to show up? And I was like, LinkedIn. And no one knew how to maximize the platform at that time. So I became a LinkedIn coach and consultant, and I was charging people to help make over their profiles, give them strategy, and teaching how they can build relationships on LinkedIn for their business, how they can get out job opportunities. So I started charging $50 a session, $100, 200, 300. Then I remember saying like, this is nice, but it's a lot of energy coaching people one-on-one for a few hours, teaching this. What if I can write a book and just give all the lessons that I would teach each person and sell those? So I wrote a book. I found a mentor who helped me write my first book on LinkedIn.
Wow, how did you find that mentor on how to write a book? We're gonna jump back into the video in just a second, but if you wanna make better decisions with your money, you have to be aware of what's happening in the financial markets, and my free newsletter, Market Briefs, makes it very easy to do that, because every day my team is breaking down what's happening in the financial markets into a fun, easy to read and witty email. Even if you don't have a financial background, in less than 5 minutes every morning, not only are you gonna be aware of what's happening in the financial markets, but you're gonna actually look forward to reading these emails. There are thousands of financial news stories published every single day. It's impossible for anybody to keep up with all the things happening in the financial news. That's why my team is researching what's happening every day, and then they're breaking it down. That way you're aware of what's happening in things like the economy, the real estate market, the stock market, the cryptocurrency market, and the global economy. And the best part of Market Briefs, besides it being free and you being able to win a pair of our Market Briefs for free, you'll learn about that as soon as you sign up for Market Briefs, is that our newsletters are brief. You can read them in less than 5 minutes every morning. So if you want to join Market Briefs for free, I'll put the link to how you can join down in the description below. Did you sign up yet?
This guy I met, his name's Frank Agan. I met him because one of my biggest fears at the time was public speaking. I had this massive fear of public speaking. And one of the things I talk about in the Greatness Mindset is writing a list of all of your biggest fears and going all in on each fear at a time until you overcome it. So one of them was public speaking. I went to a toast, and I met someone else who was a professional speaker who got paid to speak. He told me, you gotta go to Toastmasters and do it every week for a year if you wanna become a great public speaker and overcome the fear. So I started going to these Toastmasters. This is an interesting story. I went to these different Toastmasters groups, which is an international organization that teaches you how to speak. And it gives you skills and feedback and like a support group to help you overcome, so that you can apply this on a weekly basis. And so he said, go check out all the clubs in Columbus, Ohio, the Toastmaster clubs. And you can sit in on them. And it costs like $50 or $60 a year to join one club, but you can go sit in for free. And see which one scares you the most. That's the one you want to join.
Oh, wow.
So I went to like 5 different clubs in a week, and I started seeing, okay, do I resonate with these speakers? Does anyone inspire me that I want to learn from? And is it scary enough? I went to the scariest place where people had like published books and they'd spoken on Oprah's platform and like leaders in the community. Everyone was wearing suits. I was like, this is where I got to join. In one of these sessions, now I have my cast on at this time. This is pre-LinkedIn stuff, right? This is like when I'm on my sister's couch still.
Okay.
In the first year, I started doing the public speaking thing. I have a cast on, and I'm going around to these Toastmasters club with this cast on, with a cutoff shirt, because the shirt doesn't fit over the cap. When everyone's in suits, and I'm a 23, 24-year-old punk with a backwards cap and baggy jeans, looking like I'm just out of, playing a football game. Yeah. And I go to one of these Toastmasters groups where my friend and mentor at the time, Frank Agan, was a guest speaker at. He was speaking at to give a presentation. In the back of the room was chips and hummus and bread and carrots and, little snacks. At the end of this event, I go to the back of the room, I shit you not, I go to the back of the room, I get as many napkins as I can. I stuff all the food I can and put it in my pockets. Shit you not, man. This is probably another low point. Yeah. I'm stuffing food in I have a huge baggy jeans at the time, not these skinny jeans that I wear now. Yeah. Big baggy jeans, I'm stuffing it in. I'm carrying it with like one hand because I can't really use the other hand. I'm stuffing it in both pockets. Yeah. And the guy, Frank, comes up to me. He goes, what are you doing? He comes to the back of the room and he sees me stuffing in food in my pockets. I go, I don't have any money, man. I'm like, this is my food for the night, right? was either I have to rely on my sister for the night, whatever she was having, or I was like, this is my snacks, I'm hungry. And that was real for me at the time. I just didn't have like money coming in. And so I had stuffed food in my pockets. He goes, there's a diner next door, let me take you to lunch real quick. So this was around like a lunchtime meeting that was happening. He takes me to lunch because he was like, who is this guy with a cast on? Coming to this kind of professional event, young guy, stuffing food in his pockets, trying to overcome the fear of public speaking. He was just curious about me.
Really?
He was curious about me because everyone else was a professional there.
Yeah. They
were all in their late 30s and 40s, wearing suits, pros. I was a scrub, showing up, stuffing food in my pockets. He takes me to lunch, he goes, tell me your story. I was like, man, I just got injured. I was just playing arena football 6 months ago, whatever, and I'm terrified of public speaking. I'm living on my sister's couch. I don't have any money. I'm in debt. I got no food. And I saw back there and I just wanted to like have some for later tonight. He goes, I'm buying lunch for you. Tell me more about your story. And he goes, it's really inspiring that you have the courage to show up here because it's not easy, that you want to better yourself, that you want to improve. And he kind of took me under his wing. You know, he would coach me in some public speaking stuff. I'd go to his office once every few months. And he had written many books before this. And so I helped him with his LinkedIn stuff for many months later. I was kind of coaching him on LinkedIn to help him in his business. And he goes, this is a game changer. You're going to help me get a lot of clients from what you just taught me. And he goes, you should write a book about this. So around this time when I was doing these events and he was kind of coaching me, I said, well, I'm terrified of writing a book because I almost flunked out of English class. And it's hard for me to read and write. Still at that day, in my early 20s. And he goes, I'll guide you. I'm going to give you prompts. I don't know the content you know, but I want you to write it for me. And I'll ask you questions, and I want you to write back and send me back every week your responses. And we'll write this together. So he dealt a lot with real world networking. He had a business actually that was like helping bring people together in the real world, doing networking. And I was doing that in the online world through LinkedIn. So we kind of brought our knowledge together and wrote this LinkedIn networking book. So it was my first book I wrote before I was 25.
Wow.
Where never would I think I'd be a published author, let alone write a book before 25, because I almost flunked out of high school English class. So that was another kind of breakthrough moment where it was just me showing up for me and my fears.
Yeah.
Say, I want to face this. I'm going to go to this Toastmasters club. I'm going to learn, put myself out there, be vulnerable and humiliate myself. But it caught attention from people saying, oh, I respect that. He's showing up. Oh, he's stuffing food in his pockets, but at least he's here. At least he's got the courage to show up, and I respect it. And he saw me taking consistent action. And because of that action and what I was doing, he saw me doing these networking events. I would invite him to these events. He was like, let's do a book. That book gave me more confidence, and I was able to sell those books at the events that I was hosting. Wow. So now I'm making money at the door with sponsorship tables. From the Food and Bar Commission, I'm coaching individuals I'm meeting at the events and telling them I'll do coaching for you. Then I'm schlepping books around the country and literally selling $10 books hand in hand saying, will you buy a book? Just like trying to make anything I can. And so I had essentially did 5 different revenue streams from one event. And I did 20 of them in about a 1.5 year time period until I got into online marketing and webinars. And that's when things started to scale and unlock, when I could do one live event online, bring thousands of people on live all around the world at one time, teach them something for free for an hour, and then offer a LinkedIn training course or program online that I could sell and scale. That's when the unlock happened. But it wouldn't have gotten there had I not been forced to pay rent in the first place.
But what's interesting about that, I think, is also I think a lot of times we assume success is like kind of this linear journey, right? Versus for you it was, I'm going to go play football. Yeah. And then that's not going to work. I'm going to help people on LinkedIn. I don't know why. I just like connecting people. I like talking to people. I like what I'm learning. I want to better myself. This takes you don't know where. Then your mentor tells you need to practice your public speaking because you don't know how to public speak. Yes. So now you start public speaking, but you don't have any money for food. So now you're shoving food down your pants. Somebody over there says, hey, what are you doing? You go and start helping this person with LinkedIn, you don't know what you're going to get out of it, right? You're doing this because you're trying to provide value to people. You're trying to put out as much value as possible, not showing, you have no idea where it's going to go. This guy happens to write a lot of books. Because he happened to write a lot of books, now you got into books. I mean, and I think this is where, you know, the idea of like, you got lucky, man, that this guy was there. But because I hear that a lot, but I think the point here is like, what is luck? It's because you kept putting yourself in these situations. Maybe he would have been a real estate guy. You might have ended up somewhere else, or a car person, and you would have tried something else, but you were able to put yourself into a different position to absorb these opportunities.
Exactly.
So then
put myself out there.
You put yourself out there, and you kept doing it again and again and again and again, even though you were scared. It was something you didn't want to do. And then you had this idea of always thinking bigger, where you're like, you know what, I'm going to keep trying to add new revenue streams. And I love where you said now the scalability comes in, because now you find you're doing LinkedIn on the internet, but there's only so many people you can coach or talk to one-on-one or in this group setting. So now you're like, well, why don't I harness the power of the internet, bring more people onto a webinar, and then what did you offer then as services?
So the first webinar I did, again, a guy named Joel Comm, found out about me. Again, I went to a social media marketing event. My event I did, my LinkedIn networking event I did in Cleveland, Ohio. Met a guy there who said, you need to go to this other conference in Vegas called Affiliate Summit. It's kind of like this big affiliate marketing event. He goes, there's going to be a lot of people there. They're going to want to learn from you. And I go, I can't afford a flight out there. I can't afford the hotels out there. And it's like $2,000 a ticket. I don't have that type of money. Yeah. Like, even though I was making more money, I was like, I can't see myself spending $2,000 on a ticket to a conference.
Because now you were trying to hold on to this money.
Hold on to this money. I'm trying to like not go back to broke again, right? I was in this mindset of that. And he goes, well, maybe you can get a press pass. He's like, I know the founder. If you apply for a press pass, you might be able to get a free ticket. And maybe you can find like a middle backseat, Southwest ticket for something cheap and get out there. And maybe you can find someone to room with. And so I go, okay, well, let me at least apply for this press pass. And I got a free ticket to the event. So I found a way to get out there. And I think I stayed with a friend or something like that I met online or something. And it's just like, hey, can I crash on your couch in Vegas? And I got out there within the first hour of me being at this conference. So I met a guy who came to my event. He said, you should do this thing. I go to Vegas for this conference. I put myself out there, I try it. I have no clue what I'm gonna get out of this experience. Within the first hour, there's a little trade show. And the guy that I had met, his name is Jim in Cleveland, he had a little booth at this conference. He's the only guy I know. I go up to him, I see him in this trade show, and I say, hey, Jim, good to see you, how you doing? Within minutes, this guy named Joel Comm walks by. And at the time, he was a pretty big deal in the online marketing space. Pretty well known, had a New York Times bestseller, and just was like doing online marketing pretty well before a lot of people knew what they were doing. So he was kind of a bigger name at this thing. Within minutes, Joel walks by. Jim knew Joel, and they're chatting for a moment, and Joel's like, hey, what's your name? To me. And I go, hey, I'm Lewis. And Jim steps in and says, this is the LinkedIn marketing guy. Like, I've never met anyone who knows LinkedIn like this guy. And at the time, no one was really talking about LinkedIn. They were talking about Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, but LinkedIn was like this boring thing. I was trying to make it exciting. And Joel looks over at me, he goes, oh yeah? Give me your pitch on LinkedIn. And in 30 seconds, I'm just like, here's why LinkedIn is the #1 platform in the world right now.
Yeah.
The household income per individual is higher than any other platform. It's all business focused. People want to make money. And I just kind of went blank and just said all these things that I knew. And he goes, oh, it's interesting. Good to meet you. And that was that. A month later, I get an email from Joel who says, I'm doing this online boot camp. And I've got the expert on, it's a social media boot camp. I've got the expert on Facebook, I've got the Twitter expert, and I've got the YouTube expert, but I don't know anyone talking about LinkedIn except for you. Would you come on and teach for about 45 minutes about everything you know on LinkedIn? And then at the end, can you sell a program and we'll split it 50-50, like an online program, teaching it. And I go, absolutely. So I just said yes right away. I had no clue what I was gonna do.
Did you have a program to sell?
I had no program to sell. I had no presentation. I had never done a webinar. I didn't even know what a webinar was. Yeah. Now everyone knows what they are, but in 2009, when I did this, I was like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to build a web page. I didn't know how to do a checkout cart. I didn't know how to do, I didn't know how to
But you still said yes.
But I said yes. And I was like, I'm in. And I had like a week to prepare. And I remember being like, this is incredible, but I'm so terrified because I don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't want to mess this up. So luckily, he had me kind of go last. Like it was every week or a couple times a week, they were doing these live webinars for a few weeks. So we had different experts going for me. So I watched what they taught and how they structured their slides. And I just created a slide deck that was mimicking what they did, but putting my content on there. They were all selling these online courses and programs. I didn't know how to develop a course. I didn't have a course. I didn't even know how to get a checkout page. I called a buddy of mine who I had met who had like sold an ebook online. And I go, can you show me how to just set up a checkout page to receive money? But I don't have enough time to make a course in the next few days to sell anything. What do I do? He said, just offer something on PayPal and say you'll give an advanced LinkedIn training in a couple of weeks. And if people pay you, then you deliver it. And if they don't, then you don't have to make anything. And I go, okay, we'll see. I have no idea if this is gonna work. I ended up getting in this live training, and I think there was about 600 or 700 people on live. So I was kind of terrified, but I'd just been doing some public speaking training at the same time. So luckily at that time, you couldn't see the camera. It was just audio and you could watch the screen. So they couldn't see me, but I'm terrified. I'm living at my brother's place still, paying $250 a month. It is in the middle of summer. I'm sweating like crazy. I've taken my shirt off. My brother doesn't have AC in the house.
Oh, wow.
Middle of summer in Ohio, you know what that's like in the little state of Michigan. How painful that is in the summers there. And I'm like terrified, dripping sweat. If people would have been able to watch me, it would have been game over. But luckily they couldn't see me. But I somehow just get into the flow. After kind of fumbling the first 10 minutes of like, oh, you know, this is who I am, and blah, blah, blah. I get in the flow because at that point I'd spent a year and a half on LinkedIn, like 4 to 6 hours a day, just like studying it and researching it, connecting people. I'd done all these networking events. I was like, I know this material. And I just start teaching it, and I start giving people real examples. I was telling people, go on your LinkedIn profile right now, change this, do this, refresh it, see the results. I was just trying to give as much value as I could for free. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I go, guys, if you found this valuable, like type in yes in the comments. And it's just boom, all these yeses. And I go, would you like more advanced LinkedIn strategies? I wasn't able to give you everything in this 60 minutes. Would you like more? Yes, boom. And I go, well, go to paypal.com/74*68263-87. I didn't have a checkout page. I didn't have anything. I had a janky PayPal link that I said, hey, go in here, type this down, open up this page. And I charged I think it was $149. And I go, here it is. Buy this. You get nothing now. But in a couple weeks, I'll send you an email and I'll do another live training. That was essentially what they got. I had no clue what was going to happen. The webinar ends. Again, I'm shirtless, drenched. And I'm just like, what just happened? I closed the webinar. I opened up my Gmail account. And it was probably one of the most beautiful sites I'd ever seen at that time. Every line on my Gmail account on my computer said, you've received payment.
Wow.
You've received payment. You've received payment. You've received payment. The whole thing was filled with these PayPal, you've received payment. And I was just like blown away. And right away I opened my PayPal account and there was $6,200 in there. And I go, I am the richest man in the world. I'm running around screaming. I'm picking up the cat, my sister-in-law's cat, saying, we did it. I'm like half naked and hair is all over me, screaming my face off because I was like, holy cow, I just spent the last year hustling, doing these events, 20 events, writing this book, one-on-one coaching, selling, like running around the country on buses to get with boxes of books to get to the next venue and selling and just like figuring it out. And in 1 hour, I made $6,200. This is life-changing. And I remember thinking, I will do this every day for the rest of my life if I can make $6,200 a day. And for almost 8 years, I did a webinar every week.
Wow.
I just went all in on learning how to master webinars, learning how to become a better presenter, a better speaker, a better teacher, how to create programs, how to do all these things. Now, I had to give 50% of that to the co-host at the time because he's the one who promoted the event. You know, as a promoter and an event creator, you got to pay the promoter. You got to pay the fee. You got to pay the venue. You got to pay all these things that go out. So I got half of that. Then I had to go and create this program and deliver it live. That took time and energy. But now I had a course that I could sell over and over again. So that was the price of admission was doing all these things for really a couple of years until I learned skills on how to do it better. And that was a game changer for me. So all these pieces, going to the Toastmasters, meeting someone who told me to start doing a book, meeting someone to say, why don't you start doing events, going to the Tweet Up where inspired me to do LinkedIn events, going to Cleveland and the guy saying, you should check out this event. That led me to going there, having the courage to figure it out and meeting someone, him telling me to do a webinar and me saying, okay, let me try this. And just following down the path of what was showing up in front of me that was inspiring me, but I had to keep taking the action, like you said.
And what I really like about that, and I want to, is it's, because I think a lot of people, they'll look at these types of stories on the internet and they say, wow, this guy made $6,000 in 1 hour. How can I do that? But what they don't see is the years that led up to that, right? Because it wasn't
years of busting your ass.
It wasn't $6,000 you made in 1 hour. You got paid because of the 2 years you put in.
Yes.
And that's where I think a lot of people kind of get misguided on the internet, where they think it's easy money. I could just go do this thing, sell this whatever class or product or service, and I can make thousands and thousands of dollars. But in order to be able to get there, that potential is there. You have to be able to go through that work, learn, meet the people, go through the processes, screw up, make failures, and then do it. And that's what you were willing to go through again and again and again. So now you built up this webinar business. Now you start doing this for 8 years. And at which point where you're like, I'm making a ton of money, I'm rich, but I am not fulfilled?
Probably after about 4 years of this, I was doing this and I got to a point where I was like, okay, I've saved a bunch of money in my bank account that I could probably live for 2 years. Wow. Is what I thought. Like, okay, I could live for 2 years off this money. Maybe I could live longer, like 3 years, but I wasn't really spending a lot also. I was like kind of just, living a pretty frugal lifestyle. But I was like, okay, I could probably live and not do any work for maybe 2 years, but then I'd be broke again.
Are you still on your brother's couch?
No, at this point I'd had an apartment. I'd gotten from $250 a month, paying for a room at my brother's place for 6 months. Then after the 6 months, after I did the webinar, I was like, okay, I want to start looking for an apartment.
Yeah.
And I found a place for $495 a month in Columbus, like a little apartment. And for me, that was the cheapest apartment I could find, the cheapest. Because I didn't own a car at the time. I had a $500 car beforehand that broke and died. So I didn't have a car. I was like, I need to walk everywhere. So I lived in a place called the Short North near downtown Columbus. And I looked for apartments for months, and all of them were like $600, $700, $800. And I found one that was $495. I go, I'll take it. It's kind of like the houses that you get, it's like the ones that are distressed, that are really like people don't want to be in.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll take it, and I'll just like put some air spray in here, it's an air filter and a rug, and I'm good to go.
But you took it distressed. I make them nice.
I took it distressed, yeah. But it was livable. It just wasn't a luxury. And $495 a month, I remember thinking, how am I going to afford this? This is a lot. I can afford it for a few months, but this is kind of scary. And stepping into that payment on my own was an amazing decision I made because it forced me to unlock creativity and courage that I didn't have before. I was safe living for free on my sister's couch and comfortable. I was more uncomfortable paying $250 a month. That caused me to generate this $6,000 unlock for this webinar because I had to start thinking differently. When I had to pay $495 a month, it forced me to say, I need to figure out how to pay rent for the next 6 months to a year. So I got courageous. I got more uncomfortable in my asks for money and my ability to package and position things and offer value and a service to people. And that allowed me to bring in more revenue. Then I eventually moved to New York City. And I went from $495 a month to $3,500 a month. Remember thinking, this is the dumbest decision of my life. I remember thinking, how do people afford this out here? And I go, this is like 6, 7, 8 months of rent in Ohio. And I remember going for 1 month for $3,500 thinking, I don't know if I could do this. I was really scared. But after about 3 or 4 days, the energy, the environment, the people I was meeting, the ideas that were coming to me expanded my level of thinking and my opportunities for money making to where after like a couple weeks, I was like, this is an incredible feeling. I don't like paying this, but I'm willing to pay it. And the $3,500 felt, I still couldn't like understand it. I go, this is crazy to spend this much money on a bed.
Yeah.
Like it's just, you burn it, you light it on fire, and the money is gone forever. So I said, how can I make this a powerful investment by being in this environment, by being near these people that are doing bigger things, by taking advantage of all that's available for me, these free events, these things, and just being in the right place, the right time for opportunities to come. And after I was there for 1.5 years, the revenue I generated from these webinars just continued to expand and build. And it's because it caused me to think differently, to think more creatively and bigger, because now I had a bigger expense to pay. I'm not saying you should spend more in order to do that, but it was the right stage and season for me at that time.
Yeah.
So I think you want to be cautious to spend more. And I would always say, you know, I wasn't like balling out in the penthouse. This was like a little studio, right? It wasn't like I was going beyond something crazy, but it still was like a big shocker for me in my paradigm of like spending that much, almost a year rent in Ohio in 1 month.
But you kind of changed your shift, because I know I went through that too, you know, coming from the Midwest. Then you kind of think small, right? It's a little bubble that you live in, slow, nice pace. Then you go to, comfortable. And then you go to Manhattan, big. The level of things are like, it's 100 times bigger. Everything faster. And it just changes your perspective on the world.
Exactly.
And so now you start making more money.
Start making more money. And then I remember moving to 1.5 years of that. I moved to LA. I'm paying $4,500 a month. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? This is crazy.
Yeah.
But it unlocks the next level for me. Now, and then I end up paying more and more and more in rent. And every time it happens to me, I go, this is nuts. I think to myself, this is crazy that I'm paying this much on rent. But what it forces me to do every time is expand my capacity for abundance financially.
Yeah.
It expands my level of thinking, my creativity, my skill set, my ability to ask courageously for more. And I think we are, you know, we can only grow into the size of the physical or emotional and psychological environment that we put ourselves in. There's a great story about the goldfish. When you put a goldfish in a bowl, it stays a certain size. You put it in a bigger bowl, it starts to expand and grow. You're like, where did this goldfish come from? It looks like a different goldfish. No, you just gave it a bigger container to fill up the space. And when we limit our emotional or psychological containers in our mind and our body around money, we limit our abilities to make money. When we expand these things and we expand our environment of who we're spending time with, where we're getting our knowledge and wisdom from, like watching your show and being a part of your newsletter, and we expand our thinking, our knowledge, we surround ourselves with wealthier minded people. This doesn't always mean they have to be financially rich, but are they wealthy in their heart, their generosity, their kindness, their health, and their relationships? When we expand these parts of ourselves, we can start to see differently of how to unlock the level of financial abundance within us as well.
I like that. I want to go deeper into that, but before I do, really quickly, when you're now making this more money, you come into LA, were you investing your money anywhere, or was it just kind of putting it back into your business?
A lot of it was saving it, because I just wanted to see the bank account stack, because I was afraid early on. So I just wanted to save it. I think my first goal was I want to bring in $100,000 in 1 year. That was like goal number one, because I'd never, that seemed like impossible.
The golden six figure.
It seemed impossible to generate $100,000 in sales. Now I don't keep all that, but just to bring it in.
Yeah.
And I remember hitting that mark and I go, okay, can I do this again? And then I did it again. I go, okay, it wasn't as hard the second time. And I go, but $1 million seems like a far away. Yeah. And I had a business partner at a time for these kind of like online courses we were creating together. And so again, this was a part of the business. And then we paid our salaries, we had expenses and taxes and all that stuff. But I remember us getting to the $1 million mark in a year and I go, this is crazy. I broke through psychologically. Yeah. Like, is it possible to make $1 million in sales? Now, the challenging thing is my bank account didn't show that I was making that, right? It was like, I'm only paying myself, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000 a month. You're paying taxes, you got to pay for expenses, all that stuff. So it's like, you got rent. Yeah. Right? It goes away quickly. And so the goal was, how do I save to $100,000? And I remember doing that once. I didn't understand investing. I didn't know how to invest. I didn't know what to invest in. I didn't invest in stocks. What I did get early on was, I remember maxing out my IRA. I remember maxing out whole life insurance as well that had, savings and cash value in the whole life insurance. So every year I was maxing those out since I was 27. I was putting like $5,000 a year from IRA. Yeah. And then eventually when I was like, I don't know, 32, somewhere around there, I started to do the defined benefit plan and invest a lot more in that. So that is stacked up from that investment over the last 7 or 8 years of going all in and maxing out defined benefit plan, maxing out IRAs, maxing out 401k, all that stuff. But I didn't understand real estate. I didn't understand the stock market yet. Until about like 8 years ago, I started to do more of that. So I started to invest in an index fund. And then probably 6 years ago, I started doing real estate funds, right? And then also investing, just every month putting away money for index funds. So I started to do that late 20s, early 30s more, and just started to say, okay, I've got the cash, now what do I do with it? But the first one was, how do I get $100,000 in cash? And then I realized, like, this is just sitting here not doing anything for me. It's making me feel safer, but it's not growing for me. So I had to learn the hard way through years of just kind of saving and not doing as much as I could with it. But I was living in fear, man. I didn't want to go back to my sister's couch. I did not want that feeling. And man, it was a game changer. And then it was like, okay, how do I make $1 million? And then how do I get to like $1 million net worth, right? How do I get my assets to that much, my cash value in different investments up to that? And then it's just been like, how do I keep leveling this? That's been the journey.
So then you're starting to invest, you start making more money, you're pretty much on top of the world now, making $1 million a year. Obviously you don't keep all of it. Right. What was that kind of that next, like, this isn't it?
So I realized that I was making good money, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. So I did all this kind of from 24 to like 30. And when I hit 30, I had the cash for like a couple of years to live. I had the savings. I was putting away money on all these kind of retirement funds or whatever. But $100,000, or maybe I had $150,000 or something. Yeah. But it wasn't like, okay, I can live with rent for $3,500 a month for so many months. It's like, it's going to go away at some point. Traveling, food, it's not like I have tons of money. I've got to learn how to make money. But I wasn't doing it, like I didn't want to teach people about LinkedIn anymore. I'd done that for years. Mm-hmm. I was kind of bored with it. It wasn't a part of like who I felt I was called to be anymore. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a number of different moments in my life where I felt like I was in breakdown. I was in breakdown in an intimate relationship, breakdown in my business partnership at the time. We were kind of going in different directions of what we wanted to do, friction there. And I was experiencing just a lot of pain and frustration in life, reactive to like situations.
Even though you're making a lot of money.
Even though I was making money. I was successful, I was making money. I went to the White House and got acknowledged by the White House and I got a signed document from Barack Obama as one of the top entrepreneurs in the country under 30. Wow. I was getting awards, I was getting credibility, I was getting this success, but I wasn't feeling fulfillment from the money and the success. That's why I said at the beginning that success is a selfish endeavor alone. It doesn't mean it's bad and wrong. It's just not the ultimate end goal. Greatness includes a service to others. Being of service and contribution while you pursue the success you want, while you pursue your goals and dreams, while you're making money. And so I started to shift from living in ego of needing to make money for me and started saying, well, how can I really do something with my talents and gifts to impact others as well as help me? That's when the idea for the School of Greatness came about. I was stuck in LA traffic, going through all these breakdowns and feeling frustrated that I had made money, had success, and I wasn't happy. And it was a big wake-up call for me. And I started to say, well, what is what I really want to do? Even if I didn't make money, what would I want to do? What would excite me? And I thought back to years prior where I was just meeting people locally in Columbus, Ohio, and asking them questions. Asking them questions about how they overcame challenges and adversities to get to where they are. And I loved being around those environments of meeting people and learning from them. Those meetings gave me skills and wisdom that I applied and took massive action that helped me get those results.
Wow.
But I said, there's so many things that I'm feeling. These fears, these insecurities, these doubts. I don't know how to manage my health the best way anymore. I'm in breakdown in all these relationships. I obviously don't understand relationships as well as I thought I did intimately. I don't know how to manage and master my money. I've got it here, but I'm kind of afraid to lose it, and I don't know what to do and invest it. And I was just kind of like in this stuck feeling, like I'm getting results, I should feel good. I have money, but why am I not happy? And I realized I didn't have a meaningful mission. It was all selfish based. It was like protection and selfish based, which again is not bad and wrong, but it's not the ultimate fulfillment. I think in your sick religion and your beliefs, you have a philosophy about being of service in your community.
Yeah, seva.
Seva, about giving back, being of service. And it doesn't mean you have to give back financially all the time, like you've said, but it's how are you to contribute to the people closest to you, your communities, your groups, your society, your cities, things like that, and give back. So at this time, I made a decision. I said, I'm going to do things that are uncomfortable and give back in different ways. I started joining kind of nonprofits that I started to believe in and said, okay, I'm going to make a commitment and I'm going to give a certain amount every year towards education, towards all these other areas that were meaningful for me. That was in that process. But I asked myself, if I could do anything every day and not need money, what would I do? And I said, all I want to do is sit down with like the world's smartest people and ask them about how to overcome failure, how to get unstuck, how to manage money more effectively, how to master my health, how to have better intimacy in relationships, how to deal with success, how to feel peace. I wish they would have taught me these things in school, but they didn't teach me these things.
Yeah.
And the things they taught me in school, I didn't understand. And they made me feel dumber than I was because I couldn't get good grades, so it didn't do well for me. So I wish there was a school I could attend that would give me the wisdom that I need in my life. And I was just like, well, why don't I create it? I've always wanted success, but success didn't work for me. Let me try to figure out greatness. I'm going to create the School of Greatness. And that was 10 years ago. And it's been a 10-year journey of finding people like yourself, the experts in different areas, to teach me, and through me, teach anyone that wants to watch or listen. And it's been a 10-year journey of mastering and overcoming the challenges of my past and becoming a better version of myself.
That's crazy. And now you have one of the top channels in the world, YouTube channels, podcasts in the world, where you meet, interview, and talk to the most successful people and people who have achieved greatness in so many different levels. And now you've also built a career out of that on top of that. So you're providing the value like you're talking about, while also building a great income. And it's become a massive media empire, which I'm sure didn't happen overnight. I mean, we're talking about 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
A decade.
Showing up and doing the work every single week, posting an episode every single week for 10 years. Now we do 3 episodes a week for the last 7 years, but I haven't missed a week in 10 years. And I was not the best in the beginning, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't have the right equipment, and I didn't make any money in the first couple of years. But I was excited about it. I was curious about it. I loved learning from people. And that drive helped me become better every time, helped me hone into my skills, overcome my fears. It allowed me to keep going when it was challenging, when it was tough, when there was adversity, when I was exhausted, when I didn't want to do it. Because I was excited about it and loved it, because I decided to make a decision to do something not for money, I didn't rely on the money to keep me going. So it's not saying I didn't want to make money. You know, I want to make lots of money. And I want this business to do extremely well, and it has done well. But I got into it saying, if I couldn't make any money, what would I want to do that would excite me?
Yeah.
So it was removing money from the idea of like, I'm doing this to make money. I was like, I'm doing this because I think it's going to help me get unstuck, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. And that level of value and service will eventually make money. How much of it? I don't know. I don't know if this was before podcasting was a thing. This was when it was just audio. I didn't have YouTube.
Wow.
I had YouTube, but I wasn't posting the videos because I wasn't recording them. So I didn't know that you could make money podcasting. No one did at that time.
Yeah.
It was more of like, how can I add as much value and how can I do something that is exciting to me? Because I think you have to be excited and love something. Otherwise, when it gets hard and draining, you're going to say, well, I don't love this. I'm not excited about it. It makes money, but I could care less about the effort and the energy I got to put into this to make the money. Yeah. And you're going to get drained after a while. So it's been 10 years. I'm just as excited as when I started.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're just getting started.
I love that, man. And the thing that I think I want to emphasize one more time is that you focus on the value. You did it for the value. You did it for the purpose. And that's what allowed even more money to come in because you focused on the impact. You kept helping more people and you created, a massive brand. You have this new book, The Greatness Mindset, where you cover everything they just talked about, which is why if you haven't gotten this book yet, make sure you get a copy of this. It is a very powerful book where if you're trying to figure out what do you do in your life, how do you get started? How do you find your passion? How do you find the purpose? How can you create the type of value? You have steps and exercises on how to do that. So if you haven't got this book yet, make sure you do that. And man, greatness. I love the word greatness. It's all about spreading that greatness and the things we wish we would have learned in school, right?
That's it, man. We all have the power and the ability to be great, but we got to be willing to step into it.
Where else can people see you, learn more about you, and follow what you're doing?
Man, School of Greatness podcast. And if they want to hear some amazing money and financial advice, we've got some incredible interviews there that have blown up, so they can watch those interviews of me and you, which I think get a different approach than what you talk about on your channel, because we get the good stuff together too. School of Greatness podcast on audio or YouTube, or Lewis Howes on anywhere on social media, and greatness.com.
Lewis, man, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for having me here, man.
Thanks, Jaspreet. Appreciate you, brother.
Rich people in general pay a lower tax rate than regular people. And you want to know the craziest part? This is 100% legal. How do I know? Well, two reasons. For one, if it was not legal, all of these people would be in jail. And the second way that I know is because I've spent a lot of time studying the federal income tax code. And what I can tell you as an attorney who is